everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak at this afternoon's AGM. It's a real privilege to have the opportunity to reflect on receiving the Volunteer Leader of the Year award, to share some of my experience as head of volunteering at the Auckland Project, and perhaps most importantly, to celebrate the incredible work of volunteer leaders across the heritage sector. So before I begin, I'd like to offer one piece of advice. If somebody says they would like to nominate you for Volunteer Leader of the Year, don't be shy and say yes. Not because it's about personal recognition, but because it shines a light on volunteering. It shines a light on volunteers, your organisation, and the impact that volunteering has. Awards create conversations. They raise awareness, they provide opportunities to showcase good practice and inspire others. So if you haven't already, think about who you could nominate this year. And if someone offers to nominate you, embrace it. My journey in leading volunteering began in 1993, and for the last 10 years, I've had the privilege of serving as head of volunteering at the Auckland Project, or TAP, as we all know it here. Now, you might imagine that after more than 30 years in the voluntary sector and 10 years leading volunteering in one organisation, I would have all the answers. The reality is quite the opposite. Volunteering continues to evolve. People's expectations continue to change. The challenges we face today are different from those we faced 10 years ago, and I'm sure they will continue to change in years to come. Every day, I am still learning, adapting, and rethinking how volunteering can thrive within TAP. Slide 2, please, Liv. For those who may not know much about the Auckland Project, let me tell you a little about where my volunteering leadership journey has taken me. Auckland Palace, formerly Auckland Castle, was the home of the Prince Bishops of Durham and later the Bishops of Durham. It is also home to Francisco de Zurbarán's remarkable series of paintings, Jacob and his 12 Sons, one of the most significant examples of Spanish Golden Age of art in the UK. Next slide. In fact, this weekend, I am in London and I'm going to visit the National Gallery's Zurbarán exhibition right after this meeting, where 2 of those paintings are currently on loan from the Auckland Palace. It's wonderful to see them being celebrated on a national stage, but I must admit it will be nice when they come home. In 2012, Jonathan and Jane Ruffer purchased Auckland Castle and secured the future of the paintings, establishing the Auckland Project as a regeneration charity. Their vision was ambitious to use art, culture, and history as a catalyst for regeneration and opportunity in Bishop Auckland and across the wider region. It's a vision that has continued to grow over the last decade and one that I have been incredibly proud to support. Next slide. Today, the Auckland Project includes Auckland Palace, the Faith Museum, the Mining Art Gallery, the Welcome Building, Auckland Tower, the Spanish Gallery, the Gardens and Deer Park, the Artists Hub, Half, our engagement team, and most recently, Binchester Roman Fort. Next slide, please. Throughout the growth, my aim has always been to ensure that volunteering is not something that sits on the edge of the organisation, but something that is embedded throughout it. That has not always been an easy space. Many of you will recognise the challenges. I mean, as a network, we've talked for years about how volunteering is changing, recruitment is becoming more difficult, retention requires more focus. And attracting younger volunteers remains a challenge for many, many organisations. And at TAP, we've tried to respond by looking for different ways to involve people and remove barriers to participation. One example is our buddy scheme, but if we measured success purely by numbers, we might not see it as a major achievement. Most of our buddies are retired volunteers, but volunteering isn't always about the numbers, it's about people. And Joshua, as an example, in his early 20s, he loves volunteering, but without the buddy system, he wouldn't be able to volunteer, and it's enabled him to volunteer confidently and successfully. Beatrice joined us at 16 years old with an incredible knowledge of the palace history. With support from our buddy volunteers, she developed the confidence to become independent in her role. Those are huge successes. not because of the statistics, but because individual experiences matter. Two ticks. It's confidence matters, belonging matters, and creating opportunities matters. And I'm delighted that our new volunteer experience officer, Grant, is now building on that work and making the buddy programme even stronger. So what has Volunteer Leader of the Year meant to me and to TAP? On the 26th of November, I was genuinely humbled to receive the award. It was exciting, slightly overwhelming, and completely unexpected. I had been chuffed to be nominated. After receiving the award, I was overwhelmed by the response from colleagues and volunteers. There were messages, congratulations, and a wonderful sense of shared pride across TAP and beyond. The directors and CEO were genuinely delighted, and our marketing team did what marketing teams do best, and they went into overdrive. Press releases were issued and articles appeared across the Northeast. Social media engagement increased dramatically. My LinkedIn account became busier than it's ever been before, and I reconnected with many like-minded people working in volunteering and heritage. And that's when I realised something really quite important. The award wasn't just about me. It was creating publicity for the Auckland Project. It was creating conversations about volunteering, and it was raising awareness of the Heritage Volunteering Group. The impact reached much further than a single individual. Earlier this year, the Auckland Project was named Volunteer Group of the Year in My Place Awards. We did not nominate ourselves. We were identified through research, publicity, and public engagement before people voted. Now, I can't prove there's a direct connection, but I strongly suspect that the increased awareness generated through the HVG Volunteer Leader Award helped raise the profile of volunteering at the Auckland Project. So recognition doesn't just celebrate achievement, it creates opportunities for future success. There were also some lighter moments. At our staff and volunteer Christmas party, I was the compere for the evening. And with perhaps a little too much enthusiasm, I'm behind the curtain and I introduced myself in the style of a comedy club host. And your compere for this evening, Heritage Volunteering Group Volunteer Leader of the Year, Michele Armstrong. I probably enjoyed that far more than I should have. But it got a laugh, and after all, if you can't enjoy a moment like that, when can you? So, however, the power of community is really, really important. And life has a habit of putting things into perspective. The day after receiving the award, which also happens to be my birthday, so it was a lovely birthday present, I accompanied my partner to an appointment where we learned the extent of treatment required following a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. 2 very different days, one filled with celebration, one filled with uncertainty and fear. And sadly, Neil passed away in April. It was an incredibly difficult time. What I remember most from those months is the kindness shown by the volunteering community around me. The flowers, the cards, the messages, the support, the care shown by colleagues, volunteers, and friends completely overwhelmed me. We often talk about boundaries. When we discuss volunteer management, boundaries comes up so many times, and it is important. But when you live and work in a place for as long as I have, something more happens. Relationships are built, friendships are formed, communities grow. They were not simply volunteers. These were people I genuinely cared about. And as I discovered, people who cared about me too. The experience reinforced something I've always believed. Volunteering is about far more than giving time. It creates connection. It creates belonging. And it builds communities that support each other through both the good times and the difficult times. Can I have next slide, please? So when our volunteer celebration event took place on the 3rd of June, I was determined it would go ahead as planned and that I would host it. Looking back, it was one of the most emotional events I've ever been involved with. There was pride, there was passion, there was certainly a few tears. For the first time, all of the trustees of TAP attended and became part of the volunteering story themselves, and they loved it. The volunteers loved it, and together we celebrated the extraordinary contribution that volunteers make every day. Next slide, please. So I was also very grateful to Matt, as chair of HVG, for the video message he provided, which we shared during the event. It reinforced our connection to the wider volunteering community and reminded TAP volunteers that they are part of something much bigger than our own organisation. As I begin to close, I want to say this. What I do know is that I'm surrounded by volunteer leaders who are achieving amazing things. Looking across this network, I see innovation, perseverance, and passion. I see people finding new ways to engage volunteers. I see people removing barriers to participation. I see people making heritage more accessible, more inclusive, and more relevant to future generations. We all face similar challenges, but we also share the same belief that volunteers make organisations stronger, communities richer, and experiences better. Winning HVG Volunteer Leader of the Year was and is an incredible honour. But what has stayed with me most is not the trophy, not the title or the publicity. But what has stayed with me is the reminder that volunteering is ultimately about people caring about people. During one of the most challenging periods of my life, the volunteering community around me demonstrated kindness, compassion, and support in ways I will never forget. That experience reinforced everything I've always believed about volunteering. It creates connection, it builds belonging, it changes lives, not only for those we serve, but also for those of us fortunate enough to be part of it. So please keep championing volunteering, keep telling your stories, keep recognising and celebrating volunteers and volunteering, keep supporting each other, and never underestimate the difference your leadership makes. Because behind every successful volunteering programme, every confident volunteer, every inclusive opportunity, and every inspiring experience, there's a volunteer leader who cared enough to make it happen. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm not quite sure how to follow that. I was going to say, has anybody got any questions? But I should ask if you'd like to take questions, if you're happy to. I know you are also you've also put yourself out to be here this afternoon, because I know, is it your daughters or your sisters, or you're down in London, aren't you, visiting family?
My daughter's sitting behind me because she has to chaperone me in her judge's office. So she's
right. Oh, so no illegal goings on.
No illegal. I'm not looking at any, sort of documents or anything like that. No, it was just, as I say, I've come down for the weekend to spend the weekend with my eldest daughter because, and we're going to the Globe tomorrow.
Very
to
nice.
see Midsummer Night's Dream, and we're going to Jesus Christ Superstar tomorrow night. So we're having a bit of a theatre day tomorrow. But anyway, yes, I would take questions.
Thank you. That was an incredibly moving talk, Michelle. And there's a lot of incredible comments that it's worth having a look at in the chat. I don't know if anybody has got any questions, but I just wondered, because obviously we've known each other quite a long time, and you touched on the fact that it hasn't always been a straightforward journey, has it? Kind of increasing the impact of volunteering at your organisation. And I wondered if you could just shed a bit of light on that journey you've been on, because I think we've all either been on it or are on it, and I just wondered, what it's been like from your perspective, and how you overcame some of those barriers and challenges.
Yeah, good question. I think way back when I started, they had a Heritage Lottery funding, and obviously part of the Heritage Lottery funding was to increase volunteer participation. They'd got a group of volunteers that had been with the Church Commission before Jonathan and Jane had bought and put into trust the Auckland Palace and the paintings. And those volunteers were like, we've been here for quite some time. We've done it without you. Why do we need you? That sort of thing. So there was conflict from both sides, really. So there was this, well, we've got to do it because it's part of the Heritage Lottery Fund. But actually, fundamentally, I think Jonathan, Jane, they went out into the community and talked to people. So there was a group of people that sort of just came in and went, we want to volunteer because of Jonathan and Jane. And then it was that process. But how do you can't be a large or involving a volunteering organisation without some process. So it's about how we've moved. I think some of the barriers were, how do we stop people, making a cottage industry out of doing rotas? How do we make sure that volunteers feel like that when they say, "Oh, I've changed my email address," or I'm not going to be here next week," they're actually listened to. And so that was a big journey on the volunteer management system. We chose Better Impact. There are others out there, but I personally, do well on Better Impact, and we've, realised that we needed something like that to help our journey. So that, I think, is one of the biggest things. In terms of internal, I think we have had a bit of a roller coaster time with a few CEOs and a few sort of, where is the direction? We started with a palace, and then suddenly we had a mining art gallery, and then there was a Spanish gallery, and then there's hotels, and then there's other things that, cafes, and we've now got, Binchester Roman Forts. This week has been amazing because we've done a volunteer campaign there, and suddenly there were people interested in something different. So it really hit home to me that people are looking for something that is interesting to them as well. So it's trying to come up with ideas and talk to people within the organisation about what they can do in terms of developing opportunities for volunteers, whilst maintaining, the delivery that we've got to deliver. So and that commercial versus charitable. So I think it's about perseverance and keep banging the drum, going, oh, and what about volunteering? And oh, can we have some volunteers do that?
And it's really interesting to hear you sort of talk through those various things. And is it a case that when the sort of organisation changed, did the organisation embrace volunteering straight away? Did it see volunteers as part of its kind of operational activities? Did it see them as part of the strategic ambitions? Or was it a case of, we've got some volunteers, we better sort of manage them properly?
Yeah, I think it was the typical, visitor facing engager type roles, and a few people in the gardens. That they didn't necessarily think about volunteering it strategically or how volunteers could help. We now do have a rep volunteer person who is meeting every quarter with the CEO, who has, the chair of the trustees is now talking to them. The biggest, I know it came on the back of the what I've been through the last few months, and that passion and me wanting to give back to those people. But I was determined that when I've invited the trustees this time, so it's taken me a long time to get the trustees to the event. The trustees were blown away by the event. They were blown away by the passion. They were blown away by being, they weren't on the same table. They were all mixed in with everybody else. They just had the most amazing evening. And that was down to including people that hadn't potentially, though they volunteers themselves, and they didn't recognise, I think, that they are volunteers. That was quite interesting, because we actually have a 10-year award, and one of the trustees has been involved for 10 years. And so when she was wearing a badge within 5 minutes of getting it. And, so there was, my boss the next day went, "Michele, you've single-handedly turned around the whole view of, volunteering and that inclusion, and, within one night. So if I've done my job there, then that was great, but it's taken a while to get there."
Fantastic! Oh, that is amazing. You were getting a lot of applause for that. Just on that, was it a case of you just sort of reaching out and saying, actually, we need to be inviting our trustees along to this? They are volunteers.
Yeah, I'd invited them. I invited them a few years. It just actually this time they were all there that day for a trustee meeting. So one of the things that we will do now is we will say, when's the next trustee meeting around Volunteers Week? Can we plan the event so that it's easier for them to come in that respect? But, we've had the chair at the events before, but not all of the trustees. And I think what we've got as well is our new CEO is actually Jane Ruffer, who is the one of Jonathan and Jane, as in the founders. And she's taken that role on voluntary, which is incredible. And since she's taken that role on, one of the things she wanted to do was actually increase the trustee board and make it more human, if you like, than it had been before.
Fantastic. One of the things that I know in my kind of old man brain, I forget when this took place, but I know that a big part of kind of changing that culture and thinking differently about volunteering involved bringing in an external consultant to help with kind of some of that that strategic work, but also bringing an external perspective in as well. I wondered if you could just maybe talk through that and maybe the important part that played in some of your in changing the culture and your work moving forwards.
Yeah, I think it happened into, as we all know, COVID scuppered so many things, and we were on a trajectory before COVID, and then it sort of blew up a bit. But yeah, I mean, I will name the consultant, Rob Jackson. I've known Rob for probably 30 years because I knew him in various guises before that. But I wanted to look at, having that outside facilitator, and I sort of put him, I sort of sold him to the organization as this, worldly guru on volunteering, and actually having somebody outside come in and speak and lead a session was very, very useful. It took us a while to then sort of take that on board, but yeah, it was really, really important to sort of just get somebody else in and just go, actually. And one of the things, oh bless him, Rob did was say, you know what, your head of volunteering, Michele, does know what she's talking about, but I'm here to reinforce that, which was really good. So yeah,
and I think that's where that external voice comes in, isn't it? I think it's about not just us as professional as internal professionals saying these sorts of things. Actually, having that external voice validating what we're saying can be so important.
Yeah, it can. And also, I think one of the other things that, I mean, is the network, the regional network, because the regional network has certainly helped to, we're not formal. Our members don't want to be formal. Rob is for hire, if anybody, just put in the chat there, Rob is for hire if anyone's interested. And he does think things through in a very logical, but is that just having that external eyes sometimes does help. But yeah, the Heritage Volunteering Group Network in the Northeast, it's great. We can bounce things off each other, and that helps. And having those connections and those networks, we belong to the Durham Volunteer Network, and that's all groups. So it's making sure that you've got opportunities to just take yourself out and think of things in different ways. I'll plug the International Symposium that Rob and his fellow symposium organisers are currently recruiting for. That was amazing. Because, it was really, you're on a call with somebody from Australia and they're talking the same language and the same problems as you in the UK. And that just was amazing. So, these sort of things, I think, I know it's hard because we're all under a lot of pressure, but actually you can take yourself forward and your organisation. I never ever think of it, it's all about me. It's not. It's always about what I can do that makes the organisation a better place for volunteering, and raising that profile. I mean, Matt, you very kindly did that video, which went down a storm because everybody went, oh yeah, we're national. But I also got Houston Goodwin, who's the CEO of Better Impact, and he did a little video as well. So we were able to plug the whole thing as we're here, we're national, and we're influencing on an international stage as well. And the volunteers absolutely love that because they, what I was trying to get across is that the things I say are things that they say to me, and then I say them on a national or international stage. and that's important to them.
Fantastic. And I'm just we're just sort of coming to the end of our time together. So I just wondered, just in terms of one or two top takeaways, what could you know, part of the reason that you won the award was because of the incredible journey that you've taken the Auckland Project on, and the way that you've embedded a culture of volunteering in your organisation. If there was one tip that you would give to people on this call for them to be able to do that at their organisation, what would it be?
Oh, take your frustration and turn it into positive, constant conversations. And it's about the relationship building and the conversations. And I'm still not there with everything. There's some people I can have those really positive, and others I'm like still knocking on the door. But yeah, and you know, every volunteering opportunity that we put out, I put round on an all staff email and ask my colleagues. I always start it with, "Dear colleagues, can you help? Can you use your networks to send you know, to perhaps look at this role profile and see if there's anybody that would be interested?" So including the wider organisation in your role and getting volunteering really as part of everybody. So even the chefs in the tapas restaurant next to the Spanish Gallery received my email going, "Dear colleague."
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. And that really resonated with me, that last point. I think that is so true. So thank you ever so much for joining us, and especially on your holiday. As you are the chair of HVG Northeast, do you want to do a last plug maybe for your next meeting? Have you got a meeting lined up?
Oh my gosh, yes, it's somewhere, and I don't know. It's oh, it is.
Sorry, Michelle. The people can look on our website, can't they? I'm sure somebody will put a
Yeah,
link on.
yeah, but I do know that the next in-person meeting, because we do virtual and we have 4 in person every year, the next in-person meeting is the 15th of October at Newcastle Cathedral at 10:30, because I just organised that yesterday. So I know that one.
Fantastic. So you can, I think you can book onto those via your Better Impact login, but you can. Michelle's details are on the regional network section of our
Yeah, just
internet as well.
drop us an email and I can sort that out. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michelle. Well, we will let you go and steal some case files now and enjoy your weekend. It sounds like you've got a really nice one lined up.
Yes, it's lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. So thank you also to all of you for joining us today. Just before we finish up, there's just a couple of bits of any other business. First thing to say is that we have a HVG event coming up just around the corner. So our next event is on Tuesday, the 11th of August from 3 till 4. And that's inclusive recruitment with the wonderful Tamsin Russell. So if you can, please do join us for that. And then I just want to finish by just saying a massive thank you to Olivia, who's done so much legwork in organising today, making sure that it runs smoothly, making sure that everything's constitutionally and governance correct. So massive thank you, Liv. I hope you're able to have as good a weekend as Michelle, even if you're not stealing case files.
Thank you, Matt. And you as well. Thank you, everyone.
Brilliant. And thank you to all of you for continuing to support us. We wouldn't do what we do without you. So thank you, all of you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, whatever you're up to, and we'll hopefully see you on the 11th of August. All the best. Bye.